Born Fearless, the Big Phil Campion story. In this episode, we meet Big Phil Campion, a man whose journey from the care system to the elite ranks of the SAS is nothing short of remarkable. Given up for adoption, raised through hardship, Phil left school at 16 with no qualifications, but a burning desire to serve. He joined the Royal Hampshire Regiment, conquered both the Royal Marine Commando course and P Company, and went on to earn his place in the SAS, serving in operations worldwide, including the famous hostage rescue in Sierra Leone. After leaving the army as a staff sergeant, Phil went on to lead private security teams in some of the world's most hostile environments. Now a podcaster, speaker, with a motivation to promote the military. It's a privilege to sit down with Phil, to hear his story, resilience, fearlessness, and the drive to push beyond limits. Welcome to this edition of Once a Warrior, Life Beyond the Uniform. We've had some very good guests on our fledgling podcast, but today we're reaching new heights. Absolutely delighted today to welcome a man who is very famous within UK forces, has his own podcast, which is incredibly successful. So massive welcome to Phil Campion.
How are you, bud? You all right? Good to be here.
Friend, thank you for coming.
Happy days.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
I was kind of thinking, what intro do I do for you? And I thought, you know what? This man needs no introduction.
Mate, that's fine. That's just, yeah.
This man needs no introduction. I could list a long list of your career to date, but
right,
hey,
we'll get there.
We'll get into that, you know.
Yeah,
so
cool.
how you keeping?
All right, yeah. Busy, proper busy at the moment, which is good. I can't moan. I'm not moaning busy, do you know what I mean? But I'm busy, yeah. So
we first met actually, 8-9 weeks ago over at the petition debate in Westminster.
That's right,
I think we had
I was covering it for a media company. I was covering it for Force Media.
Yeah.
Doing some bits and pieces, filming it all and whatever.
It was an interesting day with all the
There was some interesting characters
rolling
outside,
thunder and all that. Yeah, so it was. Well, I had to then go in and sit through the debate, which was interesting.
I'd have liked to have gone in, but I think those.
It's
It's hard work in there, isn't it?
It was intense, but it was good to see. Public Ireland was full of veterans, and it was interesting to see that subject being debated in our mother Parliament. So there was an element of
and there was a few lads outside who were obviously involved in some of this stuff who
absolutely
who weren't known to the public, but
very, very relevant. You know, but here we'll get to that. So again, listen, massive thank you for taking time to be on our podcast. And where did it all begin? Tell me a bit about your early life.
I don't know. Well, adopted from birth, obviously. You know, the rumour was when I fell out, they give me mother a slap, like, do you know what I mean? No, in all seriousness, I came from my mother had split up with, and in those days it was taboo, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She'd already had another kid. That kid was with the grandparents. Do you know what I mean? And I found this all out later on in life, but it was literally, it was like, there's no chance I was staying. Do you know what I mean? There was nowhere for me to go. There was no money coming in. And I was all given up straight for adoption almost straight away. I had a slight medical issue. Some of my guts were on the outside when they should have been on the inside. So I had to go to hospital, spend 6 months in hospital, projectile vomiting and all that sort of stuff. Right. And eventually was picked up by a family, a middle class family, so they thought they were in Southampton. But just before they picked me up, the old man lost his job.
Right.
So, I lucked in sort of like massively. I remember they didn't even have a car. They picked me up as a baby in a motorbike and sidecar from London down to Southampton, yeah.
Wow. And then with the early years after that, reasonably sort of stable?
He was violent. He was a drinker. He was a great big man. Well, he was great big to me, like, do you know what I mean? He's probably my stamp now, but he was a big man, and I remember him beating down on me many times, down on my mother, all that sort of stuff. And I always try and look, and at the time I didn't realise what I was doing, but I always try and look for a positive out of a negative. And I remember this one time he was sat on top of me and he was beating me. And I thought I should play dead. And as I played dead, he panicked because he thought he'd knocked me out proper. And he stopped. And in my own mind, I thought, well, if I do this every time, he'll stop beating me. So I was winning. And it was like, I had that down as a small win. But to think as a kid at that age, I was so small then.
That's tough.
That's not good, is it? Do you know what I mean? But, I think, it was just a lesson that I learned really on in life. Do you know what I mean? That no matter how low you get, and sometimes you're going to be able to get under a snake's belly with a top hat on, there's always, whatever air going in there, you got a chance. Like, you know, and that was my attitude even then.
Yeah.
Because the beatings were scary. Do you know what I mean? The beatings were scary. It's big man to sit on your chest. It used to make you bleed every time your nose would go. Do you know what I mean? He'd just swipe you. like with bear paws.
That's a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
You know,
It
for
wasn't great. It wasn't
for
great.
young. You know.
And my mum tried to intervene a couple of times, and she got a clump and all that. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't. You know, he didn't care. He was a drinker. Like, do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And eventually, she managed to get him out the door.
Right.
But then she turned funny.
Right.
Then she turned on me, like, do you know what I mean? She used to hit me with pots and pans and.
Right. So a testing.
I mean, I wasn't good, and I wasn't good. I remember doing it. I remember once we went shopping, and I thought, I'm going to get you back. So remember your plastic bags in the shops, and I perforated some little holes, just enough because I knew it was on the way home. All the shopping and spew out the bottom of his bag. I thought it was hilarious.
So maybe that day, maybe you deserved to be clipped that day, maybe.
So I wasn't the perfect kid, like, do you know what I mean? But some of the stuff I got, I didn't deserve, like, do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And she never used to feed me either. Food wasn't like nowadays. Kids get fed, don't they? Do you know what I mean? And they probably too much. And I'm the same. Do you know what I mean? But
wait, was that because they just couldn't afford it? Couldn't afford it, yeah.
But B, she was very frugal with absolutely everything. Do you know what I mean? So on a Sunday, whatever got left got turned into Monday's meal. What was left out of that got eaten cold the next day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never any waste.
Yeah.
Never no waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that generation, obviously, particularly after, say, Second World War, went through rations and all of that.
course,
They had a different mindset when it came to those
didn't they?
things,
They
but still, you
understood
know. Then into sort of school and stuff. Then anything.
So my
memorable?
behaviour at school wasn't great. It was probably being impacted by what was going on at home. I was intelligent, but I couldn't apply myself. I didn't see any relevance in what the school was teaching me to where I wanted to be. I wanted to be outside. I used to spend my whole time looking out the window. I really couldn't assimilate why I needed to do maths and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
You know, I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? And my behaviour, I was pretty sort of like, so I got, all through my life, every school I ever went to, I got thrown out of.
Right, okay.
For whatever reason, do you know what I mean? In those days, I used to cane you as well. In those, I had the cane. You know, I went through the sort of like role of punishments, and then ultimately got tipped out of each school eventually. Do you know what I mean?
So then, how then did the military come around? Was that just kind of?
So I ended up in like a children's home it was in the New Forest, and they got me a job on the YTS, the youth training scheme, at this place called Counter Activity Centre. The guy that ran it was a commander in the Navy or something like that, real posh old fella. And I did 1 year, then he gave me another year on the YTS, £25 a week, couldn't go wrong. Teaching skiing, earning some money in my spare time, brilliant, great job, lucked in. Anyway, at the end of it, he called me in for an interview, and I said to him, I thought he's going to offer me a job. I thought, how can he not give me a job? I'm great skier, do you know what I mean? I'm doing everything right here. And he went, no. He said, I haven't called you in for a job. He says, you can't work here. He says, you haven't got any qualifications. I mean, I had a cycle proficiency at the time, and that was it. Nothing else. So he says, you can't work here. So I'm like, well, what do you mean I can't work here? He said, well, there isn't a job for you. You need to be a teacher primarily. He said, you haven't got any teaching qualifications. He said, you can't even do your maths. You can't even write properly. Do you know what I mean? He said, you've got nothing, really. He said, so I can't employ you. And I could see him humming and ahhing and thinking about it. And he looked down, he had his glasses, and he looked down his eyes, we haven't thought about the armed forces. And I went, yeah, I have. Because I got sent to this public school in Oxford. I got expelled, but I got sent there because I had a high IQ.
Okay.
And they couldn't work out why I was misbehaving, so they sent me to this public school.
Okay.
And the state paid for it. But while I was there, they had a CCF. And the CCF was the only thing I enjoyed, because I got bullied mercilessly because I had to wear the issued school uniform, and everybody else at the time had drainpipe trousers, and I had these flares, I had big collars and all that stuff. I just got picked on, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But when you went to CCF, everybody was the same. Because you went to the store, everybody got green kit.
Yeah.
And I was fit and able, and I've always said this to young soldiers now, if you're fit and able, the rest is just gravy, innit? Do you know what I mean? You'll pick up the rest if you enjoy it.
It's really interesting if we just unpick that a bit, that even at that age, because everyone was wearing the same thing, there was that acceptance or lack of pressure.
It took away that pressure. Nobody was looking in at me.
Yeah.
I could do my rifle drills. I could run. I could do the section. I was all right. In fact, I was excelling at some of it. They're like, he does all right here. Do you know what I mean? And so none of those other pressures that were on in the school, the fact that I didn't have rich parents didn't matter, because all the screws that used to come down, all that, spoke like that, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like everybody here spoke like this, you know what I mean? So I actually fitted in probably better than they did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In some scenarios.
And you found you thrived in that environment.
Yeah, I loved it. And I just thought, anyway, as soon as this Griff said to me, have you thought about the army? I thought, yeah, I have thought about the army. Now, at the time, I was sort of like, when I was at this public school, all the talk was of Sandhurst. And I realised I'd shot the bolt on that one, because do you know what I mean? Because I didn't have the qualifications, because I dropped out. And I hadn't really thought about joining up as a soldier. And I'd watched a programme about the Paris, it was on telly. And I thought, right, I'll go down and I'll go to the army. I went to the careers office and there was a grenadier guard in there.
Right.
And he tried to talk me into being a guardsman. Now, the only thing I knew about being a guardsman was you stand outside Buck Palace.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, that's not a bit of me. Do you know what I mean?
You need a bit more of diversity than that.
Don't want that. I didn't want that. So he tried to twist my arm, and then I said about, can I join the paras? And he went, well, there's a waiting list for the paras. And he said, if you want to be a Royal Hampshire, he said, if you can get through Sutton Coldfield at the time and then back here and pass your egg test and all that sort of stuff, he said, you'll be leaving in a couple of weeks' time. I'll try to have some of that, you know what I mean? And that was it, straight in, boom. Right. Before I knew it, I'm turned up at Lichfield, my Army platoon, do you know what I mean? 1987, and I'm there, I'm doing it.
87, right, okay, I joined in 88. Obviously Army Reserve now. So they're okay about the same time then, right? Yeah. So you would have still had 58 pattern weapon? No, we would have had Reserve had that. Regulars had moved on.
We still had 50.
You had 58 pattern?
We were the second platoon to get SA-80. Yeah. But when I've passed out and I went back to Royal Hampshire, they still had SLRs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was on that transition period. But we had 58 pattern weapon.
There's some difference between the wee sort of burgundy thing on the back with a pack and total have now.
You roll out on the bottom when you DOS back on the top, smashing it on the head and all that sort of
unreal.
stuff.
Unreal. And there wasn't much room to put stuff in.
Remember you used to have that NBC pouch feeling, you used to roll everything, stick your waterproofs in there, like, you know what I mean? You could never get it. And when it got wet, you undid it to put your waterproofs on. And if it wasn't dry, you're like, how am I going to put that back in there? Do you know what I mean?
It's amazing how much, even in terms of that, equipment has come on.
Yes.
Because absolutely insane.
You know what I mean?
Insane. Yeah. Even the old Steve Toby. Yeah. Like not much use in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And especially when it's something like Phoebe or something, the big Steve Toby was useless. Like.
Yeah.
So I know it's interesting. So we I didn't realize we were that close in terms.
But I felt for the first time in my life safe. Because I'd had sexual predator experience in the children's homes. I'd had all sorts of stuff go wrong. We won't go massively into it, but I'd experienced, paedophilia and all that sort of stuff. And the first time I ever felt safe properly was on the army, because I thought, well, you can't come in here. Do you know what I mean? There's no fun. You can't come in.
Yeah.
Simple as, do you know what I mean? So I'm behind the wire now. Yeah. You've got no chance of getting at me. And I can actually relaxed a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you find that mentally sort of relaxed you very much in terms of...
I mean, I wasn't the best of me intake, but I got best improved recruit, right? And it was only a couple of years ago I found out that when I was an idiot when I turned up and they got me over the line. Like, do you know what I mean?
It doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there, for sure.
But no, I really, training for me, I really enjoyed it.
I was going to say, the actual training, you enjoyed that then, clear.
You're all in the same boat. Yeah. You've got something to do every day. You've got three square meals a day was a big thing for me.
That's a fair point.
Do you know what I mean? Because when I first got out, all right, I was on the YTS, but I was a bit of a drinker, so I used to drink me 25 quid's worth, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I used to steal potatoes out the allotment and make chips and like, you know what I mean?
Class. So was there anything in was it, I'm assuming it was 9 months, was it? Whatever it is, but was anything that you really enjoyed? Was it the weapons? Was it the field craft? Was it?
I enjoyed the fitness.
Okay.
And I enjoyed anything that was outside of those camp gates. So whether it be rangers, whether it be exercise.
Okay.
What I didn't enjoy, I hated drill.
Right.
I couldn't do drill, screamed at all the time, do you know what I mean? Absolute mong when it came to drill.
I didn't mind drill. I
wasn't great at cleaning stuff, do you know what I mean? So all the room inspections and stuff like that. So nobody likes that really. No, you're an absolute pest.
No,
you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, and I loved going downtown. So I remember, after your first 6 weeks when you've got your berry and all that sort of stuff, they started letting you out on the odd night, didn't they?
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of mates as a civvy.
Now you're able
all of a sudden I've got loads of mates. You're downstairs, drinking bottles of Thunderbird,
Well, here, you know what I would love to do if you were allowed to have a fly on the wall documentary.
Yeah.
That took a modern day recruits course.
Yeah.
And put them through what happened, say, in the 80s.
Yeah.
By way of the beasting, by way of the...
The pubs wouldn't be the same or anything, would they? I mean, we used to go down, it was wild down in Sutton Coldfield, Tamworth.
Yeah.
We used to go, Tamworth was the better place.
Yeah.
We said, you come back absolutely levered.
And you tell those stories and they think almost that you're not telling the truth about back then. No. But it was that to go into the military, and I mean, society in general was different. You've mentioned your own upbringing.
Yeah.
There were things tolerated in society in general. And people forget that the military very often, sometimes, is just a reflection of society.
Yes.
And so therefore the discipline level, the beasting, looking back now, some of it probably crossed the line, but you're getting men and women ready to fight a war.
Yeah.
So who's to say what's right and wrong? Have you ever,
Yeah,
would you have a view on that?
We know right and wrong. Do you know what I mean? If you're ironing recruits with a hot iron, that's wrong.
Okay,
do you know what I mean? But if you're being beasted or shouted at for being an idiot, well, I remember picking up picking up one of the screws webbing and going, "What's a bit light?" He used to pick it up, you know what I mean? Absolutely beasted.
That was naive. That's what that was.
Yeah. But he did, and I got a beasting for it. Do you know what I mean? And he kept me out on the square, and I went round and round and round, and I leopard crawled backwards and forwards, and I did press ups.
Yeah.
And he kept me there until I was a broken man. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't.
But that's part of it.
Yeah,
and in some ways, you probably earned their respect by completing it.
I remember going down a muster parade. I remember the Rupert come around the front. And he said to me, "I had a shave this morning." I said, "I have, sir." And I argued the toss. And anyway, the platoon sergeant moved him on. When he come around the back, he looked at me and he goes, "You got shaving foam in you?" And I said, "I can't have, sir. I didn't have a shave this morning." Well, that was it. Do you know what I mean? I'm off. I'm down the road. Like, do you know what I mean? And I remember getting down there, remember the old wombat shells. And the provost was almost rubbing his hands together as I come down the field.
Here he comes.
He's got a new toy to play with for 10 minutes. Like, do you know what I mean?
Oh, here, a completely different level then. So you pass out. Anything sort of notable in your first? Did you do any Northern Ireland tour with?
No. The first, so I did do Northern Ireland, but my first ever operation was West Glamorgan Fire Department went on strike, and we went down in them green goddesses.
Yeah,
and you used to have to wear a donkey jacket and take your scrim off your helmet and all that sort of stuff, and wear these yellow trousers. Yeah. It was horrendous. And I remember we got called out. We got called out to a horse that was drowning on the mudflats, and by the time we got there, it had gone. And we're like, no, we didn't know if it sunk or if it disappeared or if someone had got it out.
So join the army, see the world in your first operations.
And there was a picket line, all the Welsh firemen. We weren't allowed downtown. The Welsh firemen all picketed. And every time there was a proper shout, they went anyway. So it was an absolute waste of time. And I remember, couple of freedom parades, trip to Kenya. And then my first real experience of anything sort of like combat-wise was my first tour of Northern Ireland, which was Londonderry.
Okay.
Yeah. And I loved that because it was like, I joined the battalion and they just got back from South Armagh. So everybody had a weapon. I'm a crow, do you know what I mean? I proper know that I'm a crow because, where's your medal, Phil? Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like everyone else has been to Northern Ireland. So even in the NAF, they'd be speaking about, when we was in Armagh, where were you? Oh, yeah. Idiot blood. You know what I mean? So, you're proper crow back then. So I couldn't wait to go and at least level the playing field slightly. You know what I mean? So it was like,
understandable.
Yeah. So we did our Northern Ireland training, do you know what I mean, which was hive and lid and all that sort of stuff, and the vicar, everybody shot the vicar, didn't they? All that sort of stuff. It was hilarious, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? And I just, from there we cracked into Londonderry. At the time, you did a city tour. You then did a waterside tour. You then was stuck in Edmonton Barracks for a bit. You then had a training cycle. So you worked in a cycle.
Did you find it strange knowing you were still in the United Kingdom, but essentially in a conflict? Did you ever talk about that as
yes
studies
and
stuff?
No, because it was strange in the fact that, I had a girlfriend in the waterside, so you could go out and walk down her house. Do you know what I mean? Yet you'd patrol that same street. She lived almost opposite the RUC station in the waterside. So sometimes you'd patrol that same street, do you know what I mean? Or she'd see you when you were out on patrol, like, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't acknowledge her. You'd just literally walk past her like she wasn't there, like, do you know what I mean? So it was a weird situation because it was like being in any other town, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? If you walk around the Bogside, it was just like being in any other council estate anywhere else in the world.
Because normally a war happens, take a Falklands or whatever. I mean, you're on a plane somewhere, you're on a boat somewhere. There's this leaving the UK to go to war, whereas the Northern Ireland situation,
it wasn't.
You kind of
in that respect, it wasn't even really like being in a war.
Yeah.
And the thing that stuck, and I did a lot of research on Ireland before I went because I thought I'm not going over there and having it put on me by people. So I read all about the potato famine. I read all about what had happened in Ireland. I read all about how it started, all about the honeymoon period. I read up on all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I could actually, in some respects, sometimes not agree with, but almost empathise. Because if I'd have been a kid in the Bogside, I'd have been throwing bricks. That's a fact. Do you know what I mean? I would have been. So I can see that. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, and there's plenty of wrong ones over there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can understand. I can empathise in as far as I can see why it went the way it did. Do you know what I mean? In some respects. Yeah. So I just, for me, I had to know as much as I could about the place all the time. Do you know what I mean? So I learned about it. I tried.
I find that even interesting because there'd be a perception that the British Army just come over here and they just come over here to cause trouble.
No, well, I didn't.
But
I didn't. And I understood
what you're saying is you actually took time
we went over
to try
there,
and understand it.
We went over there to look after them.
Yeah.
We were the buffer zone. There was a honeymoon period. They were bringing us cups of tea.
Yeah.
And then it all sort of like manifested the other
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Before
yeah.
you know it, they're blowing you up and shooting at you.
Yeah,
Do you
and
know
that's
what I mean?
that's
It's like-
the what we sometimes refer to as the rewriting of the history of the Troubles.
Yeah.
You should never be afraid of the truth in life, and you're absolutely right. If you take the first couple of certainly the first few months into the first year, everything just turned on its head. But sometimes you try and discuss that now, people don't want to know.
No,
They just think that this is all.
They just want their own. They want to push their own agenda.
Yeah.
One thing always stuck in my mind, and I can't remember when he said it, but I think it might have been Martin McGuinness, and he said, "We've only got to be lucky once. You've got to be lucky all the time."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that was true, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? You had to switch on everywhere you went. You couldn't sort of like switch off because you knew the chances were someone would give you a good slap. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
I did see my share of incidents over there when I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I understood. I understood what the consequences of getting it wrong were massively.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Now, I'm a little bit cynical, and I better be careful how I phrase this. But I think if you look at the history of war, particularly in America potentially, sometimes if society goes too long without a conflict, there's almost a need for a conflict to test readiness, to test what's going on.
Peace, prepare for war. You need.
And I've certainly heard people articulate the thought that in some ways, and not for one moment saying that there was deliberately kept going longer than it could have, but in some ways having Northern Ireland conflict, suited is the wrong word, but it helped the state of readiness of the British Army.
It kept us ahead of the curve as
people
far as
come through their rudiment, and then we see by the time Iraq came,
yeah.
all of a sudden when it came dealing with IEDs, car bombs,
and
there was huge experience from Northern Ireland.
And the telltale signs, windows opened, crowds disappeared, looking for the abnormal and the normal, do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. All those lessons that were learned in the province could all be deployed in some way, shape or form elsewhere. It did put blokes ahead of the curve, I think it did, do you know what I mean? I've got massive respect for the American forces, and they did catch us up eventually, but at the very beginning...
That's right, I was about to say that.
They were like, hang on a minute, geez.
They hadn't been in that environment before.
And especially RSF, we're already there, boom, we're on this, do you know what I mean? We're gone, we like this, do you know what I mean? We know how to do this.
Yeah,
we do it in
with experience. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
you introduced the SF in the conversation. We'll not spend too long on this, but obviously you're well known for having moved in. So first of all, what was the motivation to move into SF?
So
how did that come around?
There's a story behind this. I did P Company because we were part of 5 Air. It was called 5 Airborne at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And I did P Company, and I loved it. And at the end of it, I thought I didn't want to. There was a 2-year tour of Omar coming up, and it was ceasefire. And I thought, I need to swerve that. I don't want to do that. I want to stay and I wanted to, I knew Free Power were in Dover, right?
Okay.
So I bypassed the commanding officer. I bypassed everybody and phoned the brigade commander up because I'd met him on our course. Right. And he said, if you ever want anything, don't be afraid. So I literally phoned up Johnny Holmes. It was Johnny Holmes. Phoned him up. Sir, it's Corporal Campion. You'll remember me. You visited P Company the other week and you said... And he's like, yes. And I'm like, right. I said, I decided I want to join Free Para. I said, can you arrange for me to transfer across? I said, because I think I'm going to get bogged down here. It was just after the amalgamation. Anyway, he's going, yes. So he must have literally gone, what a... You know, picked up his other phone, CO. I hear the RSM screaming. Within 10 minutes of coming off the phone, I hear the RSM screaming. Come in. Up here. So I go up there. I go into the adjutant's office first. The adjutant was a good guy. I know him very well, right? He grabs me in his office and he's like, because you've really upset them this time. He says, they're after your skull. He says, go in there and eat some humble pie. He says, so I get the CO starts, it's Major Newman, he's like, Cook, I know he's my company commander, Colonel Newman. That's a lovely guy, really nice guy, but he's locked on me. He's gone mad. He's screaming at me. It was after the amalgamation and he starts giving me loyalties lecture, right? He's going, you're disloyal to the cap badge. And I said, disloyal, sir? I said, I was wearing a Royal Hampshire cap badge 2 weeks ago. I said, what a piece of on my head now, do you know what I mean?
that hardly endeared them.
Womp, womp, womp. Yeah. He likes to touch fuse. He's gone now. He's screaming at me. He's trying to throw things at me. Right. RSM's now come to see what's going on. His head comes around the corner. I'm going. So I leg out of his office, and there was a guy called Henry Egan, Major Egan. He was a mechanic to IC. He was airborne trained. He'd spent a bit of time SF as far as he'd been in the Pathfinder platoon. All right, so I say SF, but you know, he'd done it. He'd done a selection and all that sort of stuff. And he grabbed me and he goes, "Campion, in here." And I remember getting in there. He shut the door behind. He goes, "Right, calm down." I'm looking at him. He goes, well done, Campion. He says, you've reached your ceiling in an afternoon. He said, you've got two options out of this. He says, either, he said, I would suggest you either hand your paperwork in tomorrow and get out. He said, or have a bash at SF selection or Pathfinders. He said, to take yourself somewhere else for a few years. So I put my paperwork in for SF selection. I thought, right, yeah, I'll just go straight to the top. I'm not messing about with this. I'm going to go there, right? So I got myself on another interview with the CEO about, whatever it was a couple of weeks later. No, he said, we've got an operational tour of Northern Ireland coming. He says, and I'm well within my rights to stop you from going. So he stopped me. He said, no, you're going to be one of my patrol commanders in the cop platoon in Omar. And I'm like, you know what I mean? No. Anyway, I did him a year. I did him a good year. I did well. I didn't moan or shit. I got on with me work. I got my head down. At the end of that first year, he called me in and said, look, if you want to start pre-training, he said, you can go anytime you like.
Go and do. Okay.
Yeah, and he did, and that was it. And actually, that CO sent me, I've still got the letter at home, sent me a really nice letter saying, well done, never doubted you, all this sort of stuff. And he said, you've got mettle, you've got character, all this sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
The things are probably necessary for...
Yeah, and I remember when he got out, actually, so he got out as a major general. He got out as a went right to the top.
Okay.
And I remember I found out that he was getting out, and I sent him an email saying, we didn't always see eye to eye, but, I'd line the route and put my heels together and clap you on the way up, boss, because you were, do you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
And actually, it got paid. So when my son joins as an officer, he actually sort of like mentored my son a little bit. Because I wasn't a Rupert. My son said, he's joining as a Rupert. And I'm like, well, I'm not Rupert. Well, they asked me questions about Sandhurst. And
I get it.
And the general said, very kindly did some stuff with my son. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant.
So,
that's good. There's that respect, as you say. There can be disagreements. That's one of the great things about the military.
Yeah.
You can fall out with someone today, and the next day you just get on with it because you've got a greater,
And I think that showed
a greater mission. You're trying to deliver on.
There was no grudge. There was no hatchet. There was, it was very straight away. It was dealt with. Do you know what I mean? It was
that's the way to go. That's the way to go. So then, I suppose that you've been asked this probably, I'm sure, a million times. SF training selection, anything that was memorable and particularly difficult, or what was the?
I did my pre-training here because I was on the Omar tour, obviously. So Mourne Mountains, up and down there all the time. I had to get permission to go up there, so you'd have when I was in the cop platoon, luckily, so I'd take a weapons bag out and I'd put a 53 in my pouch and I'd go up the hills. You had to get permission, like I mean, but I did some good training over here. We had the swimming pool at Omar.
Up the Gorchin any time? You must have done it, Omar. Up there, maybe.
No, never done that. Always used to come down here. She did the Mourne Mountains. She's just used to.
All the way to the Mournes now.
Yeah, to the Mournes. Yeah, used to go up there.
There used to be a range. You see, there used to be a range up in Gorchin. That's only about 10, 12 miles from Omagh. Well, it sort of got disused as the troubles went on, but there was a cracking range.
Yeah. Well, we were getting good stuff on Ballykindler as well.
Oh yeah.
So getting all my car drills, all that sort of stuff. So I was my weapon handling was good. I was in a good place to train. So. Did my briefing course because the briefing courses had come into effect then. And off I went. I went on selection. There was a bit of a sweepstake in the battalion. Do you know what I mean? As to what day I'd failed. Do you know what I mean? And I know that because my mate told me. The sergeant's mate had a straight sweepstake. You know what I mean? And you bought your ticket and you guessed what day Campion was going to come back. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't come back.
Yeah.
So I passed first time. Thoroughly enjoyed selection. I think the hills is a bash. The hills is like Bergen.
Yeah.
Weight. Off you go.
Yeah.
Necessary evil to find out if you've got the metal to keep going. The trees is twice as hard, probably I'd have thought physically. But you're soldiering now.
Yeah.
You got a proper gun. You're like, well, hang on a minute. I'm cutting about like a god here.
No.
So that's all like outweighed for me. That outweighed the hardship.
Yeah. And what about the jungle? Did you found okay?
Yeah,
as I said, that side of it.
Jungle's like, it's harder. The environment, everything wants you dead. Bushes, trees, bugs, the DS, everything wants you dead.
All in it, yeah.
But I'm cutting about like a god now, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And then obviously you roll in, you do the rest of the bits and pieces, Sierra, which we won't talk about.
See, there's my limited knowledge. When you said trees, my mind just went to working in forests. But you guys obviously mean trees means jungle. Fair enough, they are. Because I know a lot of you read and listen to people, a lot of people who went into SF selection, were fine with the hills and this environment, but then when they hit the jungle, they really struggled. Just because of the environment
it's done like that on purpose.
The mental side of it being there.
If you don't want to, if you can't bluff your way through, you can bluff your way for a week, you can bluff your way for a couple of weeks. You're in there long enough that if you don't want to be there, your hand will go up. It will go up. You'll go, I've had enough. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
And if you get to the end of the trees, even and you're difficult and the DS can see it, or you've struggled, or you're not particularly performing, you're off.
under
So,
scrutiny,
so you get what's called a stand-up fail, like, you know what I mean? So you're gone, like, there's no grey areas. You can or you can't in the trees, and that's it.
Well, look, I'm not going to ask you anything about SF stuff. We'll not go there in this podcast. I know obviously people can look at your channels and there's loads there. But for this one, all I will just mention is obviously Barros.
Barros.
Because it's relevant. We're sitting here in the
25 years ago.
25 years. So we're in one of the rooms in our RHQ, Royal Hampshire Regiment. Obviously, the walls are donned with those that served, particularly Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. But so back to 2000. One of the guys that you obviously rescued as part of the operation was actually in my company as when I was Company 2AC of B Company, but would have been the 4th Battalion Royal Irish Rangers. So he had been in with us, went S-type for a while, came back, ended up going then in the 1st Battalion and was one of the guys, So even just in a minute or two, what was, because that's well out there. There's nothing you've mentioned. What was that like?
That whole operation is. There's 1,000 different perspectives depending who you are and what you were doing, and even I'll get a bit of mind fog on the day of what happened and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? But a great operation to have been involved in. One of the sort of like regiments. When you talk about operations which stand out there on a limb. You've obviously got the Iranian embassy siege. You've got the Battle of Murbat. You've got some other stuff. World War II, different gravy completely. Absolutely different class. You know what I mean? But modern times. You've got those sorts of things, Falkland Islands, but Barras is up there. Barras is up there. Do you know what I mean? And if you were on that Orbat, even number 8 on the wire cutters, which I was, do you know what I mean? I was on the Orbat. I was there. Do you know what I mean?
It's the sheer logistics.
Yeah.
To move.
I don't think I got the full sort of like weight of it until sort of like later on in life, even. Because you just think about it. I'm an operator. I'm in a Sabre squadron. Do you know what I mean? Boom. I'm there. I'm tip of the spear. I'm coming out the helicopter. I'm doing my bits and pieces. You don't realise that, even I was talking on a cruise liner once, and I throw a slide up saying I was involved in this, blah blah blah, and then some woman come up to me at the end and she said, I got called in. I work in the Ordnance Survey in Southampton, and I got called in because there was no mapping for that area, so I had to literally roll off a load of maps, and we didn't know where to get them, and we had to print them, we had to get them from somewhere else, and the wheels in motion at every level. Once it goes in front of whoever's Prime Minister, once it hits Copra, the Cabinet Office briefing room. Once it gets to that level, boom, there's no expense spared. The wheels are in place. And you go to the episode.
It can't fail.
You go on exercise and you get the bedicopter, don't you? And you're all jumping out the back of a lorry going, on a helicopter. No, you're not. When you do an operation like that, everything, boom, it's there. I've never seen
if the Prime Minister signed it off, what was to do, and that's it. It has to work for them. They can't afford for it not to go well. So as you say, expense, But no, it's funny because obviously it was a big thing for with the Reserve Battalion, but it was a big thing because we knew one of the guys, and remember what's happening and updates. But interestingly, about a year later, one of the guys who was there ended up as one of the permanent staff within our battalion, and I didn't know this. I had no idea, and for some reason I was OCRTT at the time, and for some reason he and I just didn't hit it off. And we were back and forward in meetings and various things in meetings. And we were actually due to do basically Armed Forces Day, it's a big day over here. And I had the idea that we're going to bring in some helicopters. We'll have a couple of guys abseil. We'll put a couple of jumpies up on the wall in Newton Ards and they'll do a section attack extraction or something. And this guy was no. And I was like, you just don't want the hassle that they did with weapons. So I remember we had a real set 2 in a meeting one day, and I come out and another PSI called me in, and he says, "Sir, have a word." I said, "Yeah, what is it?" He says, "Do you realise what so-and-so where he was last year?" I'm like, "No." He says, "He's one of the guys that was over Sierra Leone." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." So obviously, just to give him a chance to get back into a bit of normality, give him a relatively easy job. I had no idea. So I remember I went and sort of found him out and said, "Listen, apologies, I wasn't aware. But then when I heard some of the things that they went through, particularly, you're going like, wow, they had an incredible
when you think about it, they were on a United Nations tour. At the time, it would have been quite a decent thing to do because there was only Northern Ireland and Bosnia on what they, So they're out in Africa, they're tooled up, they're on the back of decent vehicles, they're bouncing about, they're visiting people, they're doing a real-time job, and they're young men. And all of a sudden, you're in a ditch, you've got someone's foot on the back of your head, your kit's gone, and you're being marched off into a village.
Yeah.
And they saw some honking stuff in that village.
Yeah.
They saw some honking stuff in that village. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It ain't. It's not
it's
a good laugh, is it? Do you know what I mean?
No matter how hard a soldier you are, and we'll come on to this now as we sort of pivot to post-military, but you know, soldiers are human beings.
Yeah.
And again, this is where, as a Veterans Commissioner, as I've taken this role on, Phil, I've started to appreciate even more that society owes a debt to the military. And very often that's forgot about. You know, the military go and do the dirty stuff that society doesn't do, but the military does it on behalf of the nation.
No.
When you go to
Rudyard
war,
Kipling was writing about this years ago. Do you know what I mean?
exactly, and it's, to me, it's not talked about enough. That's why I admire what you're doing and almost this role you've carved out, because through the podcast you're getting that message out.
Yeah, I'm trying to concentrate on the positives. Because there are positives. We all know that there's a downside. We all know that there's problems, but I don't want to keep labouring on those problems. I want to highlight the stuff that's going well, the things that people can aspire to, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't, you can't be what you can't see. So some of these lads and lasses are getting themselves in a position where they can't see any light anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, there is light. You just got to search for it. Do you know what I mean? And I've had my own sort of like moments as well. You know?
Yeah. So we'll sort of finish the sort of your if you like, time of activity in terms of you left the military, did a few things then working with
yes, I went straight on the circuit. You know, I got out under a bit of a cloud. I fell out of my sergeant major. I PVR'd. I got out at a time where I couldn't see anything happening. It was literally, I got out on the 1st of September 2001, and obviously on the 9th of September 2001 it went off like Chinese.
The word changed.
It went off like Chinese New Year, didn't it? So I'm not thinking of it, but I didn't I took it for what it was.
Yeah.
I understood that the world was going to go to war, and I sort of like wormed my way in through Pakistan. I got to Kabul fairly early, knowing there was going to be work, knowing there's going to be stuff to be done, knowing there'd be money to be made. So I went on this wild roller coaster ride for about 15 years. Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, then all the anti-piracy stuff kicked off. So on the circuit was mental, and you were just tipping up in these places. You were making good money. You were getting. I wasn't getting anything near what my mates in the regiment were getting, but I was getting enough to feed my sort of like to make me scratch my itch. It was a job. And I was getting paid. And sometimes you're getting paid really well, do you know what I mean? So you were making a bit of money, and it was like, I just rolled from one thing to another. It was crazy. Yeah. But with that sort of money, and, you know, I ended up with a massive drink problem. Then some of my demons started to haunt me, do you know what I mean? I've always had demons from a kid with the sexual stuff, which I never spoke about till I was about 50 years old to anybody. That always haunted me. And then I had a couple of things which haunted me in the regiment, nothing combat related, but a friend of mine was killed in a car crash. It absolutely broke me, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there were a couple of things, because I can't deal with unnecessary death, and it was an unnecessary death to me, do you know what I mean? So anyway, I won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but it was, you know, I had my own struggles, and before I knew it, you know, I got in a bit of trouble. I was sat in a cell, and the cell door opened, and I got charged with attempted murder, and I'm like, really? Yeah. How did we get here? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So would you describe that as sort of a low point then, in terms of where you were, you're down, and then you're...
I got remanded in custody almost straight away, do you know what I mean? There's not a beak in the land that's going to say, oh, there's an ex-SAS man there, let's come off the rails. Had an argument, put a window through, do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff, been threatening people. Yeah. There's not a beak in the world that's going to go, oh, back that town, son. You're going down the tube, do you know what I mean? So I went straight up the road to Winchester, and I mean, I'm on A-wing, being processed and being farmed out on the B-wing. You know what I mean? And I'm there. I remember the first night I got there, I sat in my cell and I looked in the mirror and I went,
how am I here?
What have I got this? Do you know what I mean? How have I done this? And I knew, look, I wasn't guilty of what they were trying to get me done with, which had actually been lowered by the time I got in prison. They were trying to do me with attempted GBH, which I was actually quite insulted about, because I thought I've never attempted it. I mean, I thought I'd managed it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I was like thinking I did enough to get in this situation. So whether I'm guilty or not guilty of this, I did enough to compromise. I compromised my freedom with my actions. Do you know what I mean? So look, I have to take that.
That's fair.
I wasn't guilty of what they were trying to get me done with, but I compromised myself enough to get myself locked up. Yeah. Okay. And then you know you're going to get the full suite, don't you? Do you know what I mean? So even when I went in there to be, you know, the screws are telling me, look, we know who you are. No monkey business, Phil. You know what I mean? You'll go straight down the hole. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God.
You're in a bit of psychological warfare almost, and all that.
Everybody in the prison knows who I am. My book's in the library. Do you know what I mean? My book's in the library of the prison. It's like, oh God. Do you know what I mean? It's
You mentioned the book there, so we'll sort of come sort of the end of this. I'm really keen because you said earlier, which is absolutely right, and again, why I admire you so much is that you really focus on positives.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, listen, you don't have to go far to find the negatives and the challenges of being in the military and the difficulties and all of that, but you've almost got like a calling in life now, as you see it, to really look at the positives.
Yeah.
So can you, like, where'd that come from? Can you remember a moment where you thought, this is what I want to do going forward, or what was that like?
But so my attitude, it stemmed from when I was a kid.
Okay.
It stemmed from when my old man used to sit on my chest and hit me, and I think, well, I can get through this. And so long as I can get through this, I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I'll survive. So that survivability thing it was sort of like bred into me, you know, I bred it into myself. When I was sat in that cell in prison, I remember standing in front of the mirror. I remember that film Sexy Beast where Don Logan's telling himself off in the
Right,
Don Logan's going, you know, go. And I had a conversation with myself in the mirror.
Right.
And people say you're mad if you talk to yourself. I say you're mad if you don't.
Yeah.
Because the conversation you've got to have has got to be with yourself before you can talk to someone else.
Yeah.
So you've got to acknowledge and take on board what's going on. And I was determined, I'm going to turn this round. Whatever happens, whatever outcome happens, and even if they do find me guilty of whatever it is they're trying to say I've done, even if I get proper bird and I get 10 years, I'm going to turn this around somehow. There's no way I'm just taking this on the chin. There's no way I'm just going to sit here and grizzle and not get on with this. So I started making a plan in my own mind. You know, well, as soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do the other, and I'm gonna get clean, and I'm gonna rebuild my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was determined. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
So when I did get out, I had nothing. Nothing. I couldn't go back to my house. I was still banned from Hampshire. I was on a tag. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I was signed over to my brother's place, and then eventually, when I came off the tag, I still wasn't allowed back to Hampshire, so I couldn't go back to my home. Effectively, I declared myself as homeless. So I had a friend in the parachute regiment called Tom, and Tom, he knows who he is. I don't know if he wanted me to say his full name, but Tom, I put a thing on Facebook saying, look, my cousin had a building site in a place called Sutton in London. And he said, Phil, if you can stay on the building site, he said, you can look after it. He said, I'll give you 25 quid a day. Phil Skips, look after the building site. Not a problem. It was only one house.
Yeah.
Put on Facebook, there's only one got a caravan I can borrow. Anyway, Tom came back. He said, he's got this caravan in South Surrey. He said, it's yours. So go and get the thing. Pulled up to South Surrey, went past all these shining caravans, little green thing in the corner. Got me boulder. Beautiful. Like that. That's
happy.
my...
You're happy.
I mean, dragged it out of South, pumped the tyres up, greased the wheels, dragged it out of South Surrey into London, took it via a car wash, cleaned it up, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
put this thing on the building site. That was my home. That's where I lived. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I lived in there. My missus, my missus, you know, I used to split the money with her. And that was my life. I was filling skips, and I'm thinking, well, I can't do this forever.
So now I need the next.
And this is when it sort of like really kicked. I thought, well, I've got no skills. My SIA licences had all been revoked, so I couldn't go back on the circuit because I couldn't get my licences because I'd had this fucking drama.
Yeah.
And whether it was right, you know, whether I was going to be guilty or not guilty, they were still going to put a 2-year buffer before I could do anything. So I'm fucked. So it was at the time when there was some terror attacks in town. And I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll go downtown. I know where these TV types drink, you know, the Ivy and Piccadilly and all those sorts of places. Leicester Square, sorry. I thought, this is where these TV types, and I'll just go and see if I can find someone to talk to and see if I can blag my way something.
Yeah.
I didn't have a suit. I thought, I can't go down, because I only had my work clothes.
Yeah.
I had nothing. And I remember there was a charity shop by the station in Sutton, and they had a suit in there. I thought, like, I'm lining it up, I'm going, right. So I says to the woman, I says, how much is it? 75 quid or something it was. And I couldn't afford it. I'm like, saved up for this suit. £5 a day, saved up for this suit, got this fucking suit. It looked all right, actually, a bit sort of like tight under the arms, like, I mean, but it looked all right. Got a shirt, got a tie, you know, got a pair of shoes, all at the charity shop, and then disappeared down the Ivy. And I was going down there almost every other night with my cousin to go, right, just disappear out, do what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I did. And I just, eventually, I bumped into a couple of people, and one thing led to another. And before you know it, I'm on the face of anti-terrorism for Sky News. Like, do you know what I mean?
So that almost like but the attitude to go and do something a lot of people wouldn't have done, go and be uncomfortable, go and buy a suit, go and stand.
I had nothing else. So I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? Right, I've got a book called Born Fearless. It was number 4 in the charts. Do you know what I mean? So that's a plus.
Yeah.
So that means I've got credibility because I've got the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm ex-SAS, whether you believe me or not, but you will believe me by the time I finish like that. And I remember when I first wrote the book, the Walter Mitty Hunter Club were on me, like, do you know what I mean? They're calling me out.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'm leaving this. Because this is the best thing ever, because my book sales went straight through the roof.
No,
Fucking
100%.
great.
No, that's it. So just wrap
So
up. then.
totally blanked myself, and before you know it, I'm now front and centre, Gay Burley, this, that, the other, and before I know it, they're sending me out to Syria on my own with a camera crew to go and make a fucking documentary. I'm like, wow, ridiculous. You know what I mean?
So bringing it full circle now, just describe the things where you get media, podcast, and then I know you're also like ambassador.
Out of that, I had quite a
military.
rough time with the press. The press did typecast me a little bit, but I'll never give up on anything I do. So I thought, right, I've got a very good friend. He owned a t-shirt company called Forcewear. We came up with this idea together that, look, what he was having trouble with Facebook advertising and them doing this, that, and the other. And I was thinking to myself, well, I need to do something, do you know what I mean? And I was like a brand ambassador for him. And we just come up with this idea, well, if we can't get the advertising out, we'll just advertise our own stuff and we'll make our own media company, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We said, right, so we started off with, right, well, we'll build a radio station. So we built a digital radio station. That now that gets good listenership now. Like, do you know what I mean? That does well. It's online. And then we thought, right, we've got to capitalise on the media thing and make it more rounded. So then we started podcasting, vlogging, blogging, all that sort of stuff. And now we're doing sort of like live stuff in the field and everything like that. Do you know what I mean? So we have a live Facebook show, and so we do all these different things.
Yeah, and some of your podcasts have literally received
millions of views. We get some really good coverage. We get, on average at the moment, we get views upwards in the millions every month. Do you know what I mean? Combined with what we've got, and then the odd one will just get for the
and then I suppose that credibility through the media then gives you credibility back in the military space.
So this is when I'm going, right, what can I do now?
Yeah.
So we've come up with this idea, which is between me and Scott. We want to do this thing called the Storm Tour, and it's basically showcasing the outstanding role of our military, Storm, right?
Yeah.
And I want to highlight good stories for recruitment, so that young people can go, I want a bit of that. So I've been I've got this ambassador role with the 165 Port and Maritime Regiment. Yeah. I'm out on Mexi floats. I'm cutting around in boats. I'm doing all sorts of cool stuff. People don't get to see it.
Yeah.
But when they do see it, it's already working because they've had people walk through the door now. Their social media presence has gone right up, and all that people are watching it going, I'll have a bit of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the recruitment side of it, then the retention side of it, because it's fine. People going, we've got rats in the block, we've got this, we've got that, and I know that. And I'll have conversations with people behind closed doors about that. Do you know what I mean? I know the Army Sergeant Major. I know people like this. If I see something major wrong, I know yourself. I'll highlight it to people like you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need to put that on my social media because that just whips it up into something it's not. Do you know what I mean? I want to put on, I see some lads in a jackal the other week. You in a fucking jackal, you're thrashing it over Salisbury Plain, you're having the time of your life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's cool. Do you know what I mean? I'm out with the helicopter support unit. They're hanging things off helicopters. They're getting loads of time under disc and all that. And it's exciting stuff. And I want people to see that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's for the retention and the recruitment.
Yeah.
And then finally, on the resettlement side of life, I want to highlight that there is life after service.
Yeah.
There is stuff people can do. And if you're that bothered about it, well, join the reserves or go back in or hand roll yourself out with the cadets or something like that, because you can still get green skin if you want it. And some people just down tools and go.
And get the benefit, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I heard someone was telling me the other day, well, they should have some sort of like a probatory system where you have a handrail out of the military. They've got it. It's called the reserves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And for too many regulars don't see the benefit in actually going reserve.
So I talk about 165 Port and Maritime Regiment, right? So just say, for instance, I get out. Even if I was in the infantry, I'll go there. All right. I've got to wear an RLC cap badge. There's nothing wrong with an RLC cap badge. I wear it now. I don't care. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But what I am going to get if I go there is I'm going to get crane operator. I'm going to get port operator. I'm going to get I'm going to get every driving license. I'm getting it for nothing. Yeah. I'm going to have a hand in the door. I'm still going to have access to this, that, and the other. I'm going to have an ID card. Yeah. Once I've got all those qualifications, I can go to Civvy Street and I'm worth 15 times what I was when I went there.
Correct. And also,
why am I selling this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But and to go almost back to where we started, you're also in that environment where you're equal.
Yeah,
people don't judge you.
I deal with a full screw who's got the ear of the colonel. It's not as rigid as it was, and rightly so. It's rigid in the infantry and places like that. Do you know what I mean? It has to be. You've got to keep control. But when you're dealing with this, we're loading ships in real time down in Marshfield. Yeah. We're putting stuff on that's going around the world to help in operations. I'm like,
that's real.
This is real.
No, I get it. The reserve is such a great next step.
It's
the
that
regulars.
handrail out of the military, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So people are going, well, they don't do nothing for me. Well, you don't ask them.
Yeah, no,
they're certainly doing nothing for them.
There's also the stereotype that years ago, say before Iraq,
So this is where
toy
this is
soldiers,
where-
TAs,
this is
SAG,
where
all that sort of stuff.
this is where the TA of old, when me and you
Yep.
joined,
Yeah.
you looked down at it
Yeah,
and you went, "It's a drinking club.
yeah,
You ain't never going to get in the same size denims as me.
yeah,
You're overweight. You're out of control. You're only here for the drink."
yeah.
But then these people went to war. These people were
Correct.
battle casualty replacements.
Yeah.
These people were training up. These people knew they were going to war when they signed up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that brought them up to now the military look across at reserves. They don't look down at them anymore.
Yeah, that's
Do you know
right.
what I mean? That's a
That's right.
massive game changer
Yeah,
for me.
no,
Do you know what I
huge,
mean?
huge.
And I don't think some of these guys that get out and they go, "Oh well, yeah, never in my." Well, all right, not in your day.
yeah.
Come and have another day now.
And what's really interesting, and we're going to run out of time on this, but what's fascinating, and we saw this in Iraq in 2004. We had 30 odd boys from Northern Ireland here,
Yeah.
and we formed a composite company, and the rest of them were the London Regiment.
Yeah.
So they were a mixed cap badge. But a lot of the ones in London were like doctors, lawyers, high-end business people. But they were in the reserve for that bit of relief.
And that networking as well.
But their knowledge, their experience, that you know, and I mean, we used to send like barrels in with the MO wanting to go into Basra, the med center, something like that, and he couldn't believe it. He'd sit in the back of a snatch, and the boys were talking about the stock market. The boys can speak 5 different languages, and this was not what they're used to.
Yeah.
Where they get maybe 18, 19-year-olds who've just not even finished school and gone training. So the reserve definitely brought a whole different dimension to some of the tasks, particularly some of the defence tasks around places, but also, as you say, backfilling. They had the experience. You've guys have done 2 tours of Iraq, a tour of Afghanistan. I mean, they're up to a standard. Once they've done that, they're up to a decent standard.
Dave Radband, ex-SFFG, had loads of punch-ups, been all over the world with Power Edge and obviously the stuff that he's been doing, shadowing SF, TF Black, all that sort of stuff, or TF, I think TF Purple or whatever it was they call themselves. But he's now joined the RAF as a reserve firefighter because he'd always wanted to do a bit of firefighting. Do you know what I mean?
After all that,
he's wearing an RAF beret, cutting around there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, like
He's not. He said to me, "I'm not even swallowing pride. I'm just as proud of this as what I am of anything else. I'm not having to earn it."
That's a really interesting sort of.
And I think,
story.
if you actually sort of like step out of what you were and realise what you can be, do you know what I mean? You can actually still achieve f***ing loads.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So, last sentence then to you. How does Phil Campion want to be remembered?
That's a really, really good question because I'm not bothered if I'm not remembered so long as I've made a difference. Do you know what I mean? I don't care if you don't remember me, but if I can help one person improve their life and have a better time on this planet, I'm happy with that.
What a great place to end.
Me.
What a great place to end. Phil, absolute pleasure. Appreciate that.
Cheers.